So in this video, we are going to discuss about what are those three major factors which FDA is looking for as far as the compliance is concerned. So one is the data integrity, the second one is now the nitrosamine impurities, and the third one is the out of specification result. So in this video, we are going to talk about these three important compliance factors, and the second one is we will also discuss about the few of the important common terms that FDA use. So let us begin with the presentation now. And here we go with the presentation that the FDA's compliance focus. And the three important terms that we discussed, one is OS, second one is nitrosamine impurities, and the third one is what? The data integrity. So let us have a discussion now. The first one is the out of specification result or the OS. And as a part of this one point, we are going to discuss about these five important points. The first one is the FDA is very much keen about understanding how you have investigated and invalidated the OS. How you have ascertained that yes, this is invalid OS and there is the obvious error available for the cause, or there may be a assignable cause for this OS, and hence we are now invalidating the OS. We are saying that there is no issue with the product meets the specification, and whatever earlier results reported by the analyst was because of the certain errors. So FDA is very much interested in understanding how organizations are invalidating the OS, and it is one of the red flags during the US FDA inspections. So if you have some OS results which are invalidated, then please make sure that you have a scientific basis on invalidating those results. You have a solid investigation done, and based on the certain uh, reasons you have invalidated OASs. So this is the number one point. The FDA is going to validate your invalidated OAS results. The second one is what is the rationale for defined scope of the OAS investigation. Now, listen until you conduct the investigation, you will not be able to understand what is the root cause behind the um, given non-conformity. What is the root cause behind this particular OS? And as a part of phase one investigation, we are going to challenge the lab data. We are going to confirm the laboratory data accuracy, whether the analysts have performed the analysis as expected. Was there any error during the preparation of sample, calculation, peak integration? What is that reason? Because of that, probably the OS has occurred. So, what is the scope of your investigation now? Are you limiting your investigation to a very smaller region of your observation? Or do you have a holistic approach of considering the bigger picture, understanding the bigger picture of the OS? And what FDA looks for now, and it's very interesting to know that, let me arrange, yeah, here over here now. So the OS investigations should be extended to all potentially affected batches. And this one point is very big one now. So what is your current uh, scope of investigation? Do you consider the all the batches, or do you consider the batches which are recently manufactured, or do you consider the batches which are analyzed the time of OS observation, or do you consider only the batch for which the OS has observed? Now, this is the interest of the US FDA, and this is going to determine your scope of investigation. Are you going to investigate the OS for one particular batch? Are you going to investigate the OS at which the another batches also analyzed, or to have a holistic approach of understanding what may went wrong and how this OS result may affect your earlier batches. Why this OS is only related to this one batch and does not applicable to other batches. Now this is the question. You must ask yourself and get the answer why this observation is only related to this one batch. And if, for example, if there is a concern of your analytical method, if your analytical results, if you observe that there is a issue with the extraction technique now. For example, if your extraction is not suitable, your sonication time is not adequate during the stability study, you were able to recover the content at the initial time points, at the during the process validation, during method validation, you could able to get the recoveries of the of your sample. But the moment now you have loaded the stability studies and you are now conducting the stability studies, and you found that at the 6 month of accelerated conditions the tablet are becoming harder now, and because of that the your extraction techniques, the sonication of, for example, 10 minutes is not adequate to extract the APIs from the sample now into a solution form. So how this is going to only be specific to this one batch? And there may be a situation wherein you have to investigate this one finding to the multiple batches, to all batches which are analyzed during the stability study. And this is what the concern of the regulators, that your scope is very much important to them. So how you are defining your scope during the OS investigation. The third point when it comes to OS is now then how the investigation is carried out through hypothesis. So how you have defined the hypothesis. How you say that the, for example, the contamination because of the HPLC vial can be ruled out. How you can say that the blank preparation is ruled out from the investigation? How you can make sure that the standard preparation is ruled out, and what is your hypothesis based on you are ruling out certain areas of your analysis? So those hypotheses, and then further if you are nullifying the hypothesis, is of great interest to the regulators, because you are further narrowing down to the real root cause. You may have, let us say, 10 different hypotheses. These are the 10 reasons because of which the result can go this way, can go wrong. And once you start investigating, you are going to now ruling out the hypothesis that out of this 10, now this one looks to be only prominent and this all 9 hypotheses are null. And that is the interest of regulators, how you are building the hypothesis and further ruling out one by one. The fourth one is how the root cause is determined and confirmed. Now this is something very interesting. So when it comes to root cause, there may be a one root cause for the given non-conformity, or there may be a multiple root causes to one given non-conformity. So how you are confirming, yes, this is the root cause, and how you are confirming that. Now this confirmation is something very important and interesting. For example, during investigation, you identified that the lower assay results were observed because of usage of wrong filter paper. And as per your method of analysis, PVD filter paper supposed to be used for filtration of sample, but the analysts have used nylon filter paper. And your stand is what? Because of this change, the result has come towards the lower side. Now you have to confirm your hypothesis. You have to prove that yes, if someone really used the nylon filter paper, then the result will definitely come toward the lower side. It may not to the exact figure, but you have to prove that yes, there will be a significant drop in assay when the nylon filter paper will be used for filtration of the sample. So how this can be done? So this can be done by again using the same solution available now You can't really retest the product. You can't prepare the fresh sample out of the available sample quantity, but it is always preferred to use the available stock solution of the sample, which is called as the remeasurement or the repeat analysis. By now filtering the same sample solution maybe with the PVDF filter paper, which is your correct filter paper, and then again deliberately filtering the same test solution by nylon filter paper. Now this is something very important for you because this is your hypothesis. The filter paper used is wrong. So with the PVDF filters test solution, you must achieve the higher assay result. And with the sample solution filtered through nylon filter paper, you must now observe the lower assay result or the result which is out of specification. Now this is called as a confirmation of your root cause. That yes, the usage of nylon filter paper really gives the lower result. Great, you identified the real root cause. And moving ahead, if you use the PVDF filter paper, what is happening to your batch? Now, though you may end up getting the higher result for the assay with the PVDF filter paper, but you cannot consider those higher results for passing the batch, and you have to again then retest the sample solution once again. Retest means what? Again using the original set of sample available with you and preparing the fresh solution out of that, and then understand how much is the assay result. So this is how you can confirm the result. The fifth point is how close the OS in case if root cause is not identified. Now, there may be a situation wherein you may not be able to identify the real root cause. You have tried your best, you have made hypotheses, and based on that, you have planned some experiments, but you could not able to identify the real root cause. Is this possibility? Yes, this can be a possibility. And during this, the FDA has very practicable approach. FDA says that it's okay in case if you do not identify the root cause, but what are the efforts you made? Please document those efforts, and at the end, if there is no root cause identified, it's okay. But the making the efforts in identifying the root cause, documenting your efforts is equally important. The second important focus of FDA nowadays is the nitrosamine impurities. Why? Because nitrosamine are proved to be a possible human carcinogens, and even they are categorized as the cohort of concern. They are not just a simple mutagenic impurities, but they are highly potent mutagenic impurities. And that's the reason if you look at the limits given by FDA in the guidance, that for NDMA it is 96 nanogram per day. And for another like NDEA, it is how much? If I'm not wrong, 26.5 nanogram per day, because they are really a very potent impurities, and that made US FDA to focus on the nitrosamine impurities into the product that you are now supplying for the consumption, and you need to now identify the source of nitrosamine. So US FDA is really worried about how manufacturer making an effort in identifying the source of nitrosamine impurities. So when it comes to source of nitrosamine impurities, now where you have to focus. I mean, there is a guidance available. You can go and check the presence of amines and the nitrosating agents. Now, why amines and nitrosating agents are of great concerns? Because these two important constituents can result into a nitrosamine impurities. If there is a compound which is a secondary amine, tertiary amine, or quaternary amine, and if there is the presence of nitrosating agent like nitrous acid or the sodium nitrite, and in case if there is a acidic environment available, one will end up getting the nitrosamine impurities, and that's the reason identify whether there is any source which can which can provide you the amines, which can introduce nitrosating agents into your process or reactions. And that's what is called as investigating and identifying the source of nitrosamine impurities generation. And this is the primary factors. The presence of amines and presence of nitrosating agent can lead for generation of the formation of nitrosamine impurities. The second one is dedicated versus non-dedicated equipment. So what is your manufacturing process? Do you have a dedicated facility for your product, or do you use the facility for multiple products? And this will end up in having a cross contamination possible. Then recovered solvent versus fresh solvents. So what is your strategy? Do you use the fresh solvents, for example, DMF, methanol, or IPA for each batch separately? Or do you use the recovered solvent? I mean, you take the solvent from the previous batch, then further you purify the solvent lot, and then use the same purified solvent for your next batch. And if this is the practice, now what is the control you have that will avoid the formation of nitrosamine impurities? The point number fourth is now cleaning validation. So what is your cleaning validation matrix? Are you sure that the contaminants from the previous batch is thoroughly cleaned and it is below acceptable carryover limit, or the below maximum allowable carryover limit, which is the MACO? And what is the guarantee? What is the cleaning validation you have done? What is the detergents you are using that guarantees that yes, the previous content, the previous API will be below MACO? So this will be determined with the help of your cleaning validation. So understand that. The second important point is when it comes to nitrosamine is the risk assessment, and when it comes to cleaning validation, yeah, let me also tell you that what is the chances of the carryover. Now this is very important. You may have a nitrosating agent, let us say nitrous acid, as a part of your reaction process, and you may have the amines present into your reaction, but they are added totally into the different manufacturing steps. You may say that okay, I have nitrosating agents like nitrous acid at the step number 1, and I have amine at the step number 5. Now in this case, you have to also prove that the carryover, what is the possibility that this nitrosating agent, right, will not go to the step number 5 where amines are present. So if that has been proved, then you can prove that there is no chance of formation of nitrosamine agent. The second point now, the risk assessment for non-sartan products. We know that the sartans like valsartan, telmisartan, irbesartans got impacted worst, and valsartan is the most impacted API and the drug product. So, but in case of non-sartan products like metformin, the news has come up that the many metformin products are tested and found containing nitrosamine impurities. Right? Ranitidine also contains the nitrosamine impurities like NDME. So the non-sartan molecules products also must be investigated thoroughly for the presence of nitrosamine impurities. The third one is the supplier oversight. So how you are controlling your supplier. It can be API manufacturers, the raw material suppliers, and the solvent suppliers. So understand what the control your supplier has so that the nitrosamine impurities will not get present into your APIs, raw materials, or excipients, or the solvents. The third important focus point of the FDA is now the data integrity. And it is no secret to everyone that FDA provides the huge, and there is a zero tolerance policy at the FDA. If someone get caught in data integrity, straightforward 483s, okay? And that is what the Alcoa principles talks about. Now what is meant by Alcoa principle or Alcoa plus principle now? The data or system must be attributable, legible, contemporaneously recorded, means online recorded. It must be original and accurate. This is Alcoa now. And recently FDA also added the plus factors, which stands for complete, consistent, enduring, and available. So look at your systems, look at your data, and understand whether this Alcoa Plus principle is getting fulfilled in your case. The second important point is FDA investigators often spend a significant amount of time looking for data integrity. So inspectors are really behind in identifying and understanding, is there any scope you people have in making your data spurious, and they are spending a huge amount of time on understanding that. And some FDA investigators never leave the quality control lab because all the data in QC can be verifiable, and that's where you are releasing the badge. You are confirming, you are invalidating the OAS, you are identifying the root causes, and where the FDA inspectors would like to spend uh, sometimes the entire time in the quality control labs. So what FDA is inspecting as data integrity. Yeah. So look at the fourth point. So as a part of data integrity, the FDA inspector is looking at the control and the oversights you have. What is your systems and policies so that the data will be properly controlled? What is the data manipulation chances your system provides to the analyst? And this is going to also further determine whether your data will be foolproof or it will not be a foolproof. How company handle data integrity issues. So the policy and governance is going to determine this third point. Now let us also understand the few important common terms when it comes to the FDA. And here is the one is the NAI, that is no action indicated. VAI stands for voluntary action indicated, and the third one is, which is very critical, that is OAI, official action indicated, and the third one is EIR, stands for the establishment inspection report. So let us understand one by one these terms in very briefly. What is meant by NAI? No action indicated. So you will be happy to receive the statement from the inspector that your audit has happened with a no action indicated status. That is the no objectionable conditions or practices were found during the inspection, and this further led to no 483s. You are happy to receive this status, and further your product can be acceptable to the US market. Yes or no? This is the happy status. The second status is what? The VAI, voluntary action indicated. So look at the screen. So significant objectionable conditions and practices were observed, but no regulatory action recommended since the objectionable conditions do not meet the threshold for regulatory actions. Right? So you are at the alert now. Your systems are deviating from certain requirements, but they are not deviating to the threshold above which the FDA will give the something called as the official action indicated, right? But in this case, you will get the 483, but you responded that your corrections are adequate and your response is adequate. And because of that, you can further continue supplying the product to the US market. The third one is very critical, which is what? The official action indicated. And as a part of this, the auditor has found now the significant objectionable conditions were observed and officially regulatory action is recommended. Now you have received either 483 or warning letter, and the further products can be accepted. And the fourth one is EIR, which stands for the Establishment Inspection Report, and it is like the detailed inspection summary And this ORA, the Office of Regulatory Affairs team, provides this report to you within 45 days of inspection. So this is what the focus of the FDA now going to be as per as the inspections are concerned. And as a part of this video, we also talked about the few very important common terms. So I hope you must have liked the content of this video, and I would like to meet you soon in another such kind of interesting video. Till then, take care and bye bye.